Hello everybody, my name is Ox, and today's video I'm going to be showing you guys how to set up some very basic explosives such as grenades in C4 in Unreal Engine VR. So this was actually something that was requested by a user, the Gaming Brit, over on the VR Playground Discord. So if you guys want to join the VR Playground Discord as well, there will be a link in the description for you guys to check out. With that, I hope you guys enjoy and go and jump right into the video. Alright, so I've gone ahead and created a new project. As usual, I've done very little other than set it up and create a couple of folders which we'll be using during the tutorial. So to start off, I do have the player here. So first things first, we're going to want to set this to auto possess because that was actually something I'd forgotten. But anyways, so first things first, we're going to go and jump over to the project settings. Now here in the project settings, we just want to be able to add a couple of inputs. I need to actually add a couple additional ones for my headset specifically to our grab left and our grab right, as I am using an index and that is not automatically set up. So let me just go ahead and do this real quick. Grip grab. So grip grab is actually used for the index for just basic grabbing. You have other options in there as well, but I won't be going into that in this video. A couple other things we're going to want to add in is we're going to want to add in a couple inputs for our triggers. So we're going to use the triggers, to be more specific, our left and right triggers on each of our controllers to, I put trigger, to be able to arm our grenades when we set them down. So let me go ahead and set this in. Let me see there. I'm not going to set up. I'm not going to set up for every different controller simply because that's going to take a little while to go through and set up for every controller. So I'm just going to set up for mine. If you're developing this for your headset, you're going to need to set this, of course, for your headset. All right. So next things we're going to want to do is we're going to want to create some kind of material that shows that the explosive that we have is armed. So this is actually fairly simple. So I'm going to keep it fairly simple. So let me go ahead and just create a new material. I'm just going to call it armed, and I'm going to keep it all of this just very simple. All I'm going to do is just change our base color so that way it will turn red. You can actually do this by just getting a vector parameter. I'm going to go and leave it as labeled param. Actually, no, let's go and change it. I'm just going to call it red. And then we're going to want to grab this top node and drop into base color. And then if you click on it, you can actually go down here and change the default value. And as I said, I'm just going to make it a nice bright red. Something that's easily noticeable and will just kind of tell the user, hey, it's armed. And it'll also be a great way to make sure that everything is working correctly as well. So let me go ahead and apply and save this real quick. Okay. Next thing we're going to want to do is we're going to need to modify our pickup actor interface just a little bit, because we're actually going to be modifying the BP pickup cube. And we don't need to do too much here. We're just going to add a new function and we're just going to call it arm. And we're not going to do anything more in here since we're going to handle all the functionality in the BP pickup cube. But that'll give us a nice start to work off with there. Okay, so next thing we're going to do is open up our BP motion controller. Or I'm sorry, before the BP motion controller, we need to open up our motion controller pawn. Because this is actually where all of our input comes in through. So we're actually going to basically do a little bit of a juggling thing here. We're basically going to go from our motion controller pawn, and then from there call a function within our BP motion controller, and that function will actually arm our explosive that we've created. So let's go ahead and just zoom in here. I'm just going to do trigger left and trigger right. There we go. And let's actually go and jump over here and create a quick function here. We're just going to call it arm. And we're just going to want to, whenever we press trigger left or trigger right, we're going to want to grab our left and right controllers respectively. And we're just going to want to call the function arm. There we go. And that's going to be it. It's quite simple on the player side. You don't really need to do much beyond that. So we're just going to leave it at that. Okay, and then over here in the BP motion controller, we're going to want to grab whatever our attached actor is, and we're going to want to set this to arm. However, we don't want to call arm the function. We want to call arm message. So this will actually call pickup actor interface if it's something that our attached actor has, and it will then run the arm function from that interface. So supposedly at this point we should have some object with the BP pickup actor interface. And we can actually check that, because if we go back here into our get actor near hand, you can actually see that it actually checks to make sure that whatever we're grabbing does have this interface before assigning it to our attached actor and all that, which is actually handled in another function. This is actually at storing the nearest overlapping actor. Yeah, right there. So this is where it actually returns our nearest overlapping actor, and if I recall, that's actually used over here in grab actor, and yep, get actor near hand. And you can see it sets that to our attached actor. Alright, so very brief thing, brief description set aside. Next thing we're going to want to do is, so we have a couple of options here. So I'm actually going to set up two different explosives. I'm going to do one grenade and one C4. So rather than edit this one specifically, I'm actually going to go ahead and hit Control W, and then I'll actually duplicate this. I'm going to call one grenade, and go duplicate that again, and we're going to call the other one C4. And let me go and grab both of these, and I'm going to drag these over to explosives, so that way we have them both here. We could have left it in there, but just for simplicity's sake. Alright, so let's go and open these up. I'm going to start with one, and then we'll move on to the other. So we'll start with the grenade. Alright, so here in the grenade, there's not going to be too much that we need to do in terms of the pickup and drop. These are both pretty good where they're at. So we're just going to go and leave those right where they're at. But we are going to need to call arm. And you'll actually... Ooh, that is the wrong thing. So we're going to want to call arm, and you want to look for event arm. And you want to make sure that's being called from the pickup actor interface. Similar to how the drop and the pickup are both being called from the pickup actor interface. This is what we'll call whenever we run arm on the BP motion controller, and that's being called from our motion controller pawn. It's kind of confusing, I know, but just work with me here for a second. So here, once we arm, so we're going to want to do a couple things when we first arm. First things we're going to want to do is we're going to want to set a material, more specifically the material that we created early on, this armed one. So that way we're telling the player, hey, this is armed, go ahead and throw it and it'll do its explosive, or if we need it for it to do something different, that works as well. So armed material. So you can go about this a couple ways. I'm going to create a variable just to keep it simple. So let's go ahead, material and object reference. If we go and compile and save that, well, I'm just going to look up armed and click on that. Alright, so with that, we're going to want to grab our static mesh component, and we're going to want to set our material on it. Material. Okay, and so this will actually be used to set our material, in this case our armed material. So if we go and grab that, we can pass that into material. So we're going to be setting the material at index 0 on our static mesh. Now, quite frankly, we only have one index on this mesh anyways, so we can't go any greater or higher. But if you have other indexes and you want to maybe go through them all in order to show that it's armed, that's certainly something you can do. Just go. It's actually possible to get the number of materials, I believe, if you actually look up get materials, I think. Yeah. So you can actually see how many materials there are and everything, and just do it that way. So that's of course an option. So anyways, so now that we've set our material, we're going to want to delay for a few seconds. Now at this point is basically what we're going to call our timer for our grenade, however long we want for it to remain armed for before it actually explodes. I'm going to set this for 3 seconds, as I think that's a pretty reasonable amount of time. It's not too long, not too short. And then when it's completed, we're going to want to do a couple of things. So first thing we're going to want to do is we're going to want to get, let me see, get, hold on, I'm trying to remember, sphere overlap actors. There we go. Sphere overlap actors. So you can also do sphere overlap components or things like that if you don't want to detect the whole player, you just want to detect maybe parts of it. But we can use this to get to essentially see what actors are within a sphere around our grenade. So we can actually use this in order to see what's around and what we need to deal damage to. Now I'm not going to go through fully, all the, implementing a full damage, full damage system and all that. This is quite simply just going to give a representation of the area that the explosion is in. So let's go and do this. Get actor location. And this is where we want our sphere to go. And our radius is going to depend on the grenade we have, or any kind of tweaks that you specifically want to do. I'm going to do 50. It's not a particularly large size, but it is large enough to be able to see it. And let me actually do this, because I actually forgot. We also need to add in object types. So let's go ahead and I'm just going to do make array. This will automatically create an array for us with the world static in there. You could actually just create a full-on variable, but we don't need a full variable. We just need to be able to check for world static actors. Okay, so after this, we're going to want to go through each one. And this is where you kind of determine what you want to do. If you have like a damage system, or maybe it's not meant to damage someone, but maybe it's meant to have some kind of effect on them. This is where you come to do whatever effect you want. So all I'm going to do is I'm just going to grab this, just for simplicity's sake, just to show that it is working. I'm going to just print our display name of whatever it is that our sphere is clad with. Now again, depending on you and what you're developing, you may do something a little bit different. Maybe you actually have some kind of damage system implemented that you'd much rather use. Maybe you want to stun them or apply some kind of gravity effect. There's a lot of different options that you can do, but right here is where you're going to have the option to implement whatever it is you want to do on the grenade side. And then at the end of all that, we're going to want to destroy actor. Okay, and that's coming off the completed, so that's after we do everything to all the actors that we've collided with. Okay, so that's our grenade done, so we'll go and move on to the C4 now. Alright, so our C4, we're going to have to do a little bit additional steps to our pickup and our drop, as well as to our arm. So let me go and reposition this a little bit, because actually these are a little bit too far out that it annoys me just a little bit. There we go. Alright, so for our C4, what we want to do is we're going to start over here in the pickup. So when you're using any kind of C4, typically you're going to want it to attach to some kind of wall or a door or a window or something. That's at the very least how it'll work in most games that you'll play. So over here, we're going to start over here in the pickup. So here in the pickup, what we're going to want to do is, let's start by creating a variable, and we will do picked up, and we will go ahead and set picked up. When it is picked up, we want to set that to true. And I'm actually going to, we'll worry about the drop here in a second. So right now, we have just a Boolean where we have picked up. And then we're going to use an event tick. So over here, we're going to do a line trace by channel. And again, here at this point, you kind of have a little bit of variety in how you want to do it. Because it's not something like a first-person shooter or something like that, like you would typically play like Call of Duty or Battlefield or anything like that, you don't have a very clear straight, if that makes sense. So what we're going to do is, in order to kind of resolve this, we're going to get the position of our player and draw a line from the C4. So if we have C4 in this hand, we will draw a line from the C4 onward from wherever the player is. So that way we have some kind of base, so that way we have some kind of idea of where we want our C4 to go. Alright, so in order to get this done, what we're going to do is, so to start, we're actually going to want to just get our actor location. That's fairly simple. We just want to know where our actor's location is, because this is where the line is going to start from. Now in order to find the direction we want to go, we're going to find look at rotation. And we actually need to know what it is we're grabbed onto. So at this point we should be attached to some kind of component of some kind. So we can actually do get parent actor. And this will give us a parent actor to base off of. So if we go and grab this, we'll want to do get actor location, my bad. There we go. And I'm going to drag this down a bit. I'm going to bring this back a little bit. And our get actor location is where we're also going to feed into target. So what we're essentially doing at this point is we're getting our parent actor, which in this case is actually going to be our BP motion controller. However, because of how the BP motion controller is set up, it'll actually be in roughly the same position as where a player is, and actually not even quite there. It'll actually, I believe it actually goes somewhere right here. If not, maybe it's down by the feet at the actual origin. I forget which, but this kind of gives us a basic to work off of. So let's go ahead and get forward vector off of this. And here's the point where we actually need to do a little bit of modifications to this. So let's go ahead and actually I'll break this here. Split struct pin. And at this point, we kind of have a choice as to what we want to do. So because of the way that the player is set up, this actually won't point directly straight of where we need it to. This will actually point at an angle from where we need it to. So in order to fix this, we can actually take out the Y value and actually get a straight line from the player to whatever direction we want it to go in. So I'm actually just going to take this, I'm just going to make a new vector, and I'm just going to leave out the Y. So we're only going to bring over the X and the Z. And then from here, we're going to add a vector to vector. And this vector we actually want to multiply. So let's go and do vector times float. And this we're going to want to feed into our added. So actually let me organize this a little bit better, so it's a little bit clearer. Let's do this. There we go. It's a little bit clearer. Gives us a better look at what we're looking at. So this should give us a forward vector from the player to, and then past the, and then to from the grenade onward, or I'm sorry, C4 onward. Now, in order to actually give us some kind of visibility of what we're doing, I'm actually going to use a debug line. So we'll do for duration, I'll leave the trace color as 1, and I'm actually going to decrease this to 3. Now, quick note, the debug lines, if I recall, don't show up in actual builds, so you do want to have some kind of actual line that you have here at this point, or if you don't want any at all, you can just take off draw debug type. But since this is just kind of a rough visualization of what's going to be going on, we'll work with that. All right, now at this point, what we want to do is we actually want to see if there's anything there, and we actually want to be able to store as well if there is anything there. So we can actually do, let's see this, let's do hit location, and we'll make this a vector, and then we're also going to do is hitting, and that's going to be a Boolean. Let me go and reorganize this a bit. Okay, so if we go ahead and split our struct pin, oh, that's what I meant to do. Let's go and bring this out actually and break. Okay, there we go. So at this point we want to actually check if we're actually hitting anything. Okay, and so if we are, actually let's do this first. So our set is hitting, we do want to be set to be equal to whatever our blocking hit is, because this will tell us if we're actually hitting something or not. So we can actually use that, and then our hit location, say hit location. So if we are in fact hitting something, what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to get our location that we are getting from our hit result. And we'll use this location to actually send our C4 to that spot. All right, so when we release, we want to check for a couple of things. So let's actually do this. Let's go ahead and set up ARM first before we work on our drop. Ooh, that's the wrong thing. ARM, there we go. Okay, now ARM we essentially want to work in this same exact style up until, let's see. Actually, no, we are going to want to work the same exact way. So we do want for it to work the same exact way. So I'm actually going to go and copy this real quick and paste this, since that'll give us everything that we need. Now, a change we want to make to this though is we do want to move this forward a little bit, and we're actually going to want to add another Boolean that just checks to see if we are armed. And then if that, we want to set that to true here. Okay. Ooh. Oh, we don't have an armed material. Hold on. Armed material. And that's going to be in material. So we can go ahead and do object reference, change variable type. We only have the one reference there, so it shouldn't be too bad. And let's go and set that. All right. So that'll give us a very basic arm. So now at this point, when we drop, this is where we want to determine what we want to do when we actually drop it. So what we're going to want to end up doing is one of a couple things depending on the scenario that we're in. If it's armed and there's nothing that we're hitting, we want to just drop it. Nothing happens. If it is armed and we are finding something, then we want to attach to the wall. And if it's not armed, but it is finding something, or even if it isn't, then we want to just drop it like we usually would as well. So quite frankly, only in one of these scenarios, we want to be able to attach it to the wall, and that's when it's both armed and we're hitting something, which is why we have these two Booleans right here. So we can actually go over here, and at the end of this, we'll go and do branch, and we will do set is, oh, not set, my bad. Get is armed, and we also want to get is hitting. Okay, and we'll actually run this through an AND. So we want to check to see if they're both true. We want them both to be true, otherwise we're just going to drop it. And we go and drag this off and drop that right there. Okay, now in the case that this is true, we're armed and we're hitting some wall that we want to be able to attach to. Then at this point we want to, we're going to want to do a couple things. So we have a couple of ways of going about attaching our C4 to the wall. One way would be to set up some kind of system. If you want it to be attached at a certain point on, say, a wall, then you can have a socket or something like that, so that way you can attach it to that specific point. What I'm actually going to do is I'm actually going to take our hit location, and I'm going to do a couple things. So we're going to take our static mesh component and we're going to disable physics on it at this point. So let's go and get this. And we want to set simulate physics. There we go. We want to set that to false. This will basically make it that we can interact with it and we can't, and it won't drop or anything like that. It will stay wherever it is we tell it to stay. Then if we go ahead and take our hit location, we then want to set our actor location to our hit location. There we go. And actually I'm going to set this to teleport as well, because we don't want it to just slide over there or anything like that. We want it to instantaneously go to where we need it to go. Alright, so with all that, let's go ahead and drop in our explosives. So I'm actually going to drop them both in. We'll go and leave our grenade right here. And actually, let me raise that up a bit. And we'll leave our C4 on this side with a wall. Let's see, we need a wall to be able to set up here. Here we go. Use this. Let's do it this way. Take our C4 and we will raise it up a bit. Just throw it on top of this little cube here. We can use this to attach it to. So let's go and run this and see how well this runs. Alright, so there were a few quick changes I had to make, only one of which will actually affect how everything runs for you. So starting over here in the grenade, I am still in the arm from Pickup Actor Interface. I did forget to add some kind of representation to show how big the explosion radius is in actuality. Now, like I said, debug stuff, if I recall, doesn't actually show up in actual builds. So you're not going to want to do something like this. But this kind of gives a good representation that shows that there's a radius there. If you were doing this for your own game or anything like that, it's probably at this point that you'd want to do maybe a particle effect system, or maybe you want to have some kind of mesh or multiple meshes appear. There's a lot of different ways to go about doing that. I find personally I'm more fond of particle systems for explosions and things like that. But right here, whatever it is you choose to do, this is where you'd want to do any kind of explosive effect. Then over here in C4, I didn't end up adding a radius to this one, but that would be in the same position here in the arm. You want to throw it right about here, right before the for each loop. But the difference that I did actually make here was over here when creating the line trace. One mistake I realized I'd forgotten to do was right here, this has to be set to some value that's not 0. I set this to 50 since this seems about good, and this kind of gives you a, this is what you actually use to determine how long your line trace is. And I did also have to change this as well, because it occurred to me while I was doing quick test, Y was not the value that had to go, it was actually Z. That seemed to be a little bit better for getting a position. If you want to, a good alternative to this is you could try doing just collision on the static mesh component or something like that. But you, at least as far as I'm aware, you won't get the same precision as you would a line trace, since this actually gives you a very clear location as to what's being hit. but it, it does still work pretty well in that. And then everything else stayed the same for the C4. So if we go and hit run real quick. So I've gone ahead and hit run real quick. So everything's still in the same position. I got the grenade right here, and I have the C4 over there. So we'll start with the grenade. Let me go and grab. I'm a little bit outside my. By the way, if you see my hands glitching, that's just because of my. I'm using base stations, and I have a window over here that's very reflective. So it does kind of interfere with my tracking occasionally. So here we go. So if I go and press trigger, you can see it turns red, and I throw it. There you go. So you can see it's actually a fairly small radius. You probably want something larger for something like a grenade, maybe like 200 or larger for radius. But it gives you a representation of how big it is. And then if we actually go and head on over here to C4. Actually, let me do this. I don't want to go too far from the mic. Hold on. There we go. All right. So here we go. You can see this was actually already tracing before you did anything. It doesn't really make too much of a difference, to be quite honest. Like I said, you're probably gonna have this disabled when you're actually doing anything. So it doesn't make too much of a difference, but yeah. So if I actually go ahead, you can actually see it's colliding right there. So if I go and press trigger right now, it arms, and then I let go, and it sticks to the wall. And there we go. Like I said, I didn't put a debug sphere over this one just because the grenade is doing the exact same thing. So the only difference is I did put a debug sphere on that one. So I left this one alone. That's entirely up to you. You can throw a debug sphere on both of them, or you can leave debug sphere off and just do something completely different. But that gives you a pretty good representation for a grenade and C4. So yeah. Well, I don't really have anything else to play with now because they're both destroyed now. But yeah, there you go. Alright, and with that, that is a very simple way to implement grenades as well as C4 into Unreal Engine VR. It's a very simple little mechanic, and especially using the C4 to be able to stick to things, you can certainly use that in a lot of other ways as well, with other mechanics and stuff like that for other games. If you just take out the explosive part. So it's a very interesting little mechanic, and I hope you guys all enjoy it. If you guys want to support the channel, go and hit the subscribe button out there. It allows for me to continue making tutorials for you guys. And if you guys also want to support the channel, consider checking out some of my other videos that I've done in the past as well that YouTube will recommend over here on this side. And with that, that is the end of the video. So, see ya.